In this video, I'm going to tell you how you can change your attitude so that you can do better in school. Now, a lot of students have been writing to me asking for help on how to improve and get better grades in school and perform better. Now, they've started to notice that some of my tips and one of the things that they would need to change to really take it to the next level is their attitude, their perspective on school. How do you change it from something that's negative, that's poor, to something that's at least neutral or positive? Now, some people will say, oh, you can't change it, just forget about school and start a business. That's definitely one approach, but that's not all you can do. I definitely think there's room to shift. I was a great example. There was definitely a point in probably, I would say, 8th grade, middle school, when my attitude towards school turned from fairly positive to fairly negative. And that was when I shifted from one or two gifted and talented programs to all gifted and talented programs. I took a test. My parents wanted me to. They'd been trying to get me up for years. I did, and it kind of ruined me because it was too much of a shift and I just gave up. I had a horrible attitude about school because the coursework was just crazy, and I was like, I'm screwed, like I can't keep up with it, and I just gave up trying. So unfortunately that led to worse grades and a lot of turmoil. How did I shift that into a point 2 years later where I was very positive about school again and in a much better state? And I'm not saying you can be at a perfect state. I'm not saying I was ever at a perfect state. There's some teachers that were just like, you're not a great teacher and you're just grading too harshly. But you can get to a better state. Well, the first tip has to do with understanding that shift in perspective. You have to understand it's possible and then look to see things from a different angle. Let me explain so you can really use this technique well. To give you an example, a story of shifting perspectives outside of school. When I was young, and for most of my life, I used to get kind of sad or feel kind of like pity or sadness when I would see these slow-placed areas. These like, we're talking like small town areas with like just a few small businesses running and everything's moving at a super slow pace. And then the businesses and stores there aren't that great. You know what I'm talking about. Those shopping centers that have like a hair salon and then like a Chinese takeout place. And for some reason that would always just make me sad because I felt like, man, this place is just kind of slow. It kind of sucks. And like, I feel like the people here aren't really succeeding. And if you live here, it's just kind of like a poor life where everything's slow and miserable and nothing ever happens. Or if I were to go into like a kind of slow-paced mediocre store, like let's say BJ's, it would just kind of feel really slow and like miserable. Like, people would be going in and out. It seems like just a horrible life to live somewhere like that, and there wouldn't be nothing to do. And I thought that was everyone else's perspective as well. But as I grew older, I started to realize that, no, this is your perspective of the situation. Sure, when you look at this and when you look at that business, you might be thinking, man, it's slow-paced, it sucks, they're going to go out of business, or at best, they're just going to kind of meander along. It's almost like the Boondocks. That's just your perspective. Other people might love their business. They may prefer living in a small town area. They may prefer a slow-paced lifestyle. And when you talk and learn from these people, you realize, wow, some of them like this slow vibe and they would hate living in a fast-paced city environment. Some wouldn't like all the success and riches and fame that may come out of a bigger city or different environment. So it was really just my interpretation. Just because I went into like a very slow-paced gym in a small town in the countryside or suburbs, just because I felt like that was a miserable existence doesn't mean the others do. So how does this relate to school and perspectives and changing your attitude? Well, as you can see, the more people I talked to and the more experiences I had with others, as I matured, I started to see other perspectives of things and realized that my attitude was just one way and not maybe the best way or the only way of looking at something. So as you talk to more people and find different ways of looking at a perspective, you may start to shift and think, okay, maybe school isn't that bad. Maybe you've always seen it as from one way, as in, this is something that was forced upon me, I don't want to do it, it's boring, it's tedious, I don't like homework or studying. But then, maybe as you start talking to other people who do well in school, learning from them, that's just one technique of changing your attitude, but it's a way, you might learn, oh man, this person, this student really does well in school because he really sees it as his gateway for future success. And he gets excitement from that because every step, every homework assignment he completes is a move beyond. And you can get these perspectives from so many different areas, not just talking to other people. If you watched Arnold Schwarzenegger's life through documentaries or his biography, you realize that, while others saw bodybuilding or weightlifting as a chore, he was always excited about it because every repetition he did was one step closer to winning Mr. Olympia. So that's another, thing you can take. You might also find people actually love certain topics and they love studying about them and learning about them and learning world history. And, at first they didn't, but then they started, watching, realizing that it related to their grandparents because their grandparents was part of World War II. Whatever it is. As you can see, there's so many different ways that you can change your attitude. And if you change your attitude, you can change your life, you can change your behaviors, you can change your psychology. So there you have it. And as for me, I definitely will be, taking things with my own perspective and seeing other perspectives more as well. That means when I see a slow-paced area now, that doesn't mean that they're doing bad. Maybe the business is doing well. They just get a flood of traffic during lunch hours. You never know. I try to not make conclusions as much. And I also realize that, my perspective is more so often a reflection of where I am at, in the sense that, okay, maybe I prefer a more fast-paced life. But that doesn't mean others do, and I can shift my perspective. So, change your attitude, and hopefully you can do well in school. Again, those small wins, a D to a C, can be a big celebration. Don't forget that. Celebrate and build that momentum. See you guys later.